Welcome to The Explainer. So this month, we're tracking two massive stories. On the surface, they seem worlds apart. First, you've got the bombshell testimony from a billionaire who claims he was actually the biggest victim of a notorious predator. And then, we're going to turn to a financial crisis that's quietly growing in the background, but affects every single one of us.
We're starting with this quote for a reason. It's from sworn testimony that was just made public. And it's the first time we're hearing from Les Wexner. You know, the billionaire founder of Victoria's Secret, and you could argue Jeffrey Epstein's most powerful associate. And, well, that's how he describes him.
So on February 20th, 2026, House investigators finally unsealed the video deposition of Les Wexner. For years, the big question has been, what did his main financial backer really know? Well, now we can actually hear his side of the story.
Okay, let's dive right into this testimony. We're going to use Wexner's own words here to trace his entire relationship with Epstein, from how they first met all the way to the very bitter end.
So take a look at this timeline. The whole thing kicked off with a chance encounter back in 1986. And what's just astonishing is that only 4 years later, Epstein somehow had total control of all of Wexner's finances. Wexner admits he saw some red flags, one in '93 and another in 2006, but it wasn't until 2007 that this two-decade relationship finally fell apart.
In his testimony, Wexner tries to paint this picture of a purely professional relationship. He says, quote, "I didn't see him as a friend," even claims they never went to lunch. But then you look at the reality on the right. Epstein was a trustee for his foundations, he controlled his New York mansion, he was even co-president of one of Wexner's companies. I mean, that is a ton of power for just a business associate.
And according to his own testimony, there were some pretty clear warnings. Way back in 1993, Wexner was told Epstein was going around falsely claiming to be a scout for Victoria's Secret. Then in 2006, he finds out Epstein's being sued. And what was Epstein's excuse? That he was being shaken down by a hooker. And Wexner's response? Under oath, I believed him.
So when you boil it all down, Wexner's entire defense is that he was just completely conned. He insists the deception was so perfect, he never saw a single sign of who Epstein really was. He said he didn't even see a clue of a clue. He's not painting himself as an enabler, he's painting himself as the primary victim.
Now, as explosive as Wexner's testimony is, it's really just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. It was all released as part of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which basically forced the Department of Justice to make millions of documents public.
And the scale of this data dump is, well, it's staggering. We're talking 3.5 million pages of records. Flight logs, financial statements, personal emails.
And on top of that, 180,000 images that were seized from Epstein's devices. Some of them are said to be pretty incriminating.
And then 2,000 videos. It's just an almost incomprehensible amount of material that journalists and the public are now trying to comb through. It's a monumental task.
But here's the thing. This massive release was messy. It was plagued by huge technical screw-ups, these so-called faulty redactions. You could literally just copy and paste the blacked-out text and reveal what was underneath. And because of that, the names of at least 43 victims were accidentally exposed, which is just a nightmare.
So as you can probably imagine, this chaotic document release has just ignited a political firestorm in Washington, turning the whole thing into a political weapon.
Things completely boiled over in a congressional hearing about the botched release. Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, who actually co-sponsored the transparency bill, pointedly accused Attorney General Pam Bondi of continuing to hide information.
And Bondi's response? It was immediate and it was personal. She accused the congressman of having Trump derangement syndrome. So what was supposed to be a serious inquiry just devolved right into a partisan shouting match.
And look, the fallout isn't just happening in the US. In the UK, a former minister, Peter Mandelson, resigned from the House of Lords. You've got high-level officials in Norway, France, and Slovakia who have also resigned. The ripple effects are they're so wide-ranging that a major UK paleontology convention even banned members who were simply mentioned in the files.
So while Washington is completely consumed by all this drama, another crisis, a much quieter one, is growing in the background. And it kind of makes you wonder, right? Is it possible that the Epstein saga, as important as it is also a very convenient distraction?
And that brings us to the second part of this update, America's absolutely staggering national debt. It's a crisis that, unlike the Epstein scandal, almost never makes primetime news.
Just take a look at that number. As of this month,
February 2026, the U.S. national debt is over $38.7 trillion. To put that in perspective, if you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you over 100,000 years to spend that much money. It's just mind-boggling.
So let's make it personal. What does that giant number mean for you? Well, it breaks down to $113,519 of debt for every single person in the country, man, woman, and child. That's more than double the median annual income.
So how in the world did it get so high? Well, it's not just about emergency spending anymore. It's really driven by a perfect storm of factors. You have an aging population putting massive pressure on Social Security and Medicare, a healthcare system that's the most expensive in the world, and a tax system that just isn't keeping up with our spending.
All right, so as we start to wrap this up, we're left with these two huge, seemingly disconnected stories. But what if they're not so disconnected after all?
I mean, on one hand, we have this story of personal betrayal and corruption that has become a national obsession, a political circus. And on the other hand, we have a story of, you could almost say, national betrayal that is largely being ignored.
And this really leaves us with a critical question. In a world that is just filled with shocking revelations and overwhelming numbers, what crisis really deserves our focus? And who is truly being held accountable for any of this? Whether we're talking about a financier's crimes or a nation's finances, maybe the real scandal isn't what we're all looking at, but what we're all choosing to ignore.